Hello, people. Today we're gonna compare the Digitakt with the OP-1. Two great little machines with lots of similarities, but also a lot of differences. Okay, so I'm gonna do this comparison also, not scientific or anything, I'm just giving my opinion. I am going to sell one of these machines, and this preparation of this video helped me to make the decision. Oh, the tension! Which one will he sell? Which one will he sell? Which one will he sell? Okay, without further ado, let's dive into some similarities of these machines. They both have a small form factor, they're really compact, they have their own specific workflow, which is quite nice. They both sound good, they have a good build quality, they both have samplers, and theoretically you can make full songs on each of these machines. And for the differences, I made a few sections to discuss. Let's now talk about some of the differences between the two machines. Let's start with the sampler. They both have a sampler. The OP-1 has more than a sampler. The Digitakt is mainly a sampler, also a MIDI sequencer. Especially in the hip-hop scene, you have this thing called sample chopping. This is quite important to chop old records and make new grooves with it. On the OP-1, you have two samplers. You have a drum sampler and you have a polyphonic sampler. So in the polyphonic sampler, you just sample a sound and you can play it chromatically on the keyboard. In the drum sampler, you have like the sample chop mode. So basically how that works is you sample a sound into the OP-1 and then you, let me see if I have some sounds here. So in the OP-1, in the drum sampler, you can chop a sample that you sample in it. Sample. So what you can do with it is you can make drum kits. So you chop the samples into individual hits. Like that. And it's one long sample, but you can tweak the beginning and the end per key to have like different one shots. What you also can do is like sample a record and a little bit of music and then chop like different parts of that groove to come up with your own groove. Here's an example of that. And basically this is the same, you can just change the start time and the end time and then chop up a sample. The main difference with the Digitakt is that this sample chopping on the OP-1 is non-destructive, and that is really flexible. So what this basically means is that while you have chopped it and you start playing with it, you can tweak it until it's actually right and then record it. On the Digitakt, you have some options to sample chop. At first, you have the destructive sample chopping, so that you sample a sound into the Digitakt, and then you will just chop different parts and put them on the pads. But the thing is, you cannot adjust the starting and end points later. You can only, if you sample a piece and you chop a piece, you cannot extend it anymore. So you can, of course, make it shorter, but not. You don't have the flexibility of make it longer or fine tune it. The other part is just sample like the whole groove you want to sample and then save it as one sample and put it on a track, and then you can chop the sample with parameter lock. So you can, in every parameter lock, you can tweak the starting time and the end time and the loop time and whatever. And in that way, you have a form of non-destructive chopping, sample chop. Non-destructive sample chopping. But yeah, I think that's a little less intuitive than the non-destructive sample chopping of the OP-1, because the way it chops on the OP-1 is kind of like the MPC workflow, and I really basically am an MPC man, so I love that workflow. So these are the main differences between the sampler. Then we're going to talk about the sequencers of both of these machines. They both have their own workflow and they both have great sequencers. I first have to say that. On the OP-1, you have a lot of different sequencers. My favorite is the endless sequencers. So you just tap in some notes, and it's polyphonic as well. So you tap in notes and then it just play back what you tapped in, and it's really intuitive, and it's basically like the Arturia key step. The device also does the same. It's the same as the old Roland JX3P, and I think it's just awesome also to create melodies that are not like 4-bar loops but just with an offset, and then you can have some polyrhythmic things going on. Yeah, and you have a lot of different weird little ways of sequencing stuff on the OP-1. But basically these are like the MIDI kind of looping sequencer thingies or arpeggiators, and the main sequencer on the OP-1 is its tape machine, its 4-track tape machine. I think this has its pros and its cons. It really lets you think about the music more, and it's like I put it on tape and then it's there and I need to work with that, and from there on. So you get little mistakes as well on the tape in the audio, which can make it really alive, the whole thing, especially if you just play it in live, and think it really adds some freshness to whatever you record. Yeah, and also the main thing that I really like about this kind of sequencer, just putting in audio on tape, is that you can overdub stuff. So you can layer different sounds really easily. So you can have like the same drum sequence playing and layer on top of it like an octave lower and an octave higher, and you can just beef up some samples that way, which is a lot more work to do on the Digitakt. It's also possible, but it's a really different workflow. The disadvantage of the audio tape loop I find is that I often work with like long releases on pads or on ride cymbals or stuff like that. So if you're recording loops on tape and it ends with like a tail, so to speak, then it cuts off the tail, or you start the loop with the tail of the previous loop. And so to my ears, it always sounds loopy, no matter how you do it, or you really have to record it linearly. But that's not the way I like to make music. I want to build up loops and then in a jam make the track. So the recording to audio can be really creative, because it's like I put it on there and then I have to work with it. But on the other hand, it can become quite loopy, and yeah, you have to know what you're doing to get around that. The Digitakt sequencer is a totally different beast. It's based on MIDI. So yeah, if I have like a sample on the last bit with like a really long tail, like a ride cymbal, for example, and I'm muting the channel on the first beat, then it will play through because it already hit and it doesn't chop off the audio. So for me, that's like a really nice way to go from one pattern to the next with like a decaying sample still. So you tie in different parts of the song, and yeah, I really like that, to make it not loopy and to connect all the parts of the song, so to speak. Yeah, the Elektron sequencer, what to say about it? It's awesome. It has parameter lock, so on every lock or in every step you can totally change all the parameters. You have conditional tricks, so you can put like 25% chance of this one hitting. You have fills you can program. What do we have more? We even have 8 MIDI tracks to sequence external stuff. We can play chords up to 4 notes. Especially if as a drum sampler, I think it's like really cool. And combining that with an Arturia key step, you have best of both worlds, in my opinion. Yeah, you can really make some really cool patterns. And you also have retrigs and micro timing. It's all there. Then the sound of these two machines. They're both really different sounding, I think. You can, generally speaking, you can say that the Elektron machine is like a hi-fi and the OP-1 is like a lo-fi machine. The punch that I'm getting and the punch in the grid that I'm getting out of the OP-1, I often say, and I often compare that to like old samplers like the Akai S950 or the MPC60. I own them both. Yeah, it's on par with like a sampler with a lot of character, and I really like it for that. The sound sculpting features are a bit limiting. You can easily layer in the tape section, so that's like a really cool sound sculpting tool. The effects on this thing, they do have a bunch of character, but they are a bit gimmicky for the type of music I'm making. That said, if you have other tools to sculpt your sound or your samples, the Digitakt lets you be more free with how your sound comes out, because this is basically more a hi-fi kind of sampler, so everything you put in, you get out. So if you can process your samples outside of the Digitakt and you can make them whatever you want, then it will come out the way you intend it. On the OP-1, the OP-1 puts its character on top of that sound. So that's a good thing, but it also, in some way, it's also limiting because you get just the OP-1 character. Sound sculpting wise, you have a lot of parameters on the Digitakt sampler with the overdrive, with the bit reduction, tune, different playing techniques, and an LFO to modulate or randomize stuff. With the MIDI out to MIDI in trick, you can have like 8 more LFOs controlling the audio tracks. So sound sculpting wise, it's like a really cool beast. Resampling is a bit of a hassle, but it's totally doable. Yeah, and the effects on the Digitakt are, I don't know how else I can describe it than hi-fi. Like the delay is proper and the reverb is really usable. Not in a way that has like a lot of character, but just usable. And it has like the Elektron flavor. It has more potential to use in like a hi-fi setting or like a serious music production setting. And then we're gonna talk about some miscellaneous features that are different between the two. The OP-1 also has a synth or a couple of synth engines in it, which can be really fun. They have limited parameters, but they're actually quite deep to program and they sound great. Another thing that the Digitakt doesn't have is like rechargeable battery. So this is like really portable. You just go outside with this and you can just play in the park. One note though is that the screen, when it's summer outside in full daylight, then the screen is a bit dim. So it is quite hard to actually see what you're doing then. Yeah, and it is when you want to integrate it with the rest of your studio, it's not really easy. So you have to have a MIDI class compliant or host USB thing, and then the tape machine can only play back one speed, because if you do multiple speeds of the loops, points will be all over the place. All the sequences are syncing to external MIDI clocks, so that's good. And you can use OP-1 as a MIDI keyboard and controller, so that's all working. But in like a real studio environment, it's a bit of a hassle to really integrate this in a hardware studio. Hooking this up to the computer and downloading the tape files to edit into Ableton is really easy. Everything is tempo synced and stuff like that, so that's all good. But like in a real MIDI studio, it's a bit hard to integrate. So the Digitakt has like a really normal MIDI implementation. It's easier to connect inside a hardware studio. It has a MIDI sequencer with MIDI full DIN plugs. So it's just plug in a cable and you're good to go. You can sync it. The MIDI implementation, I have to say, is not optimal yet. Hopefully one of these days, because it's February now already, we will get the Digitakt update, which fix all the MIDI hangs and stuff like that. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that update. In that update, they also gonna release Overbridge, which will be awesome. So you can record all the tracks simultaneous into Ableton, for example, and just jam away and record everything and then edit and tweak them later on. The project management is now not usable. It's just you dump stuff on it, but you cannot make copies of that or backups. So everything will be fixed, hopefully, with the new update and with the Overbridge integration. So fingers crossed again that they release it soon. Okay, then we come to a conclusion. Yeah, if you only have money for like one machine and you want to make like gritty, punchy, cool music, then and you want it portable, then definitely go with the OP-1. It's a beast. It's built like a tank. It sounds really good. It has a lot of possibilities. If you are planning to buy more hardware gear, or if you already have more hardware gear and you're looking for a cool sampler with a little bit more hi-fi sound, or you want some control over the sound yourself, if you want to integrate this in a more hardware setup, then the Digitakt is the way to go. At this moment, it's still in beta software, but yeah, knowing Elektron for a while now, they will fix all the issues and make it a real usable machine. Since I have like a big hardware studio and I really like the way the Digitakt sequencer works, and I want to make like music with my whole studio set up instead of on one machine, so I'm gonna sell my OP-1. I will cry a little if I do it. No, not really. But I'm gonna sell it because I want to buy the Digitone. So gotta sell one before I buy one. When I'm a millionaire, I will buy the OP-1 back. So let's hope I will become a millionaire soon. It's not gonna be through YouTube anytime soon. So yeah, this was my own opinion about the similarities and the differences between the two machines. I hope you learned something from it. If you liked it, please subscribe. I will make more videos like this. I will make more music. I will do some gear rants, share my techniques on how I make music, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.